Today's legacy, we're going to be looking at the drama that unfolded in that final week in September. Find out the failures of Blizzard, the frustration felt by many players, and of course, the joy and heroism of what the guilds did during the first ever race to World First. Players scratching around for their players, and of course, the joy and heroism of what the guilds did during the first ever race to World First. As I sit here with the Emperor of Man, let's set the scene. Classic exists. Many of you listening to this have probably been and played in the Classic game or even cleared Naxxramas yourselves. Yet that might have given you a skewed view of what life on Azeroth was like in 2006. WoW's launch is well known by now. They did what Blizzard did best. See what everyone else was doing and simply make it way better. The launch saw 8 million players invading its servers by the end of 2006. If you were an MMO gamer, there was simply no way to avoid World of Warcraft. I was one of these players. The game looked weak compared to the hardcore PvP MMO Neocron I was playing. I'm not the only one. The legendary Kungan himself, while playing Lineage 2, also thought the same. The problems we both had were that all our friends were setting sail to make their new homes in Orgrimmar or Ironforge, and not joining in was simply stupid. The early raid clears of Molten Core, Onyxia and Blackwing Lair were monumental feats, but the real impact of them were the stories they told. In the beginning, news of these moments were confined to realm forums, each segment of the community celebrating their server's champions. By Blackwing Lair, it spilled out into the general raids and dungeons forums, and high-end raiders were becoming legends in their own right. Remember that Classic had linear progression. No Blackwing Lair without Molten Core first, no matter when you joined. As those 8 million people poured into the game, they started from step 1. For nearly all players, scratching around for their first high-level blues was the progress track that they were destined for. Even to witness players wearing Tier 2 was like seeing a god walk among mere mortals. Players simply lived vicariously through forums and videos about bosses they probably wouldn't ever see, and as such, the prestige of those defeating them rose and rose. The Gates of Ahn'Qiraj war effort had such a lead up that speculation about who could defeat the old god first on a global scale began to mount. For the first time, the phrase "World First" was being discussed, and unlike today, many were in the running. Guild names like Drama, Curse, Risen, and Fury were all contenders, and interestingly, they were all US guilds. The EU hadn't claimed a single World First of one boss yet. The US guild Fury picked up 5 of the 9 Ahn'Qiraj bosses in the first couple of days. 2 of the remaining 4 were optional bosses, so all eyes were on the Twin Emperors and Cthulhu himself. The late gate opening wasn't the problem it would be today, though. Remember, at this time, raids were taking months to clear. Vodka, a stellar guild, managed to kill the Twin Emperors 6 days from it opening up, clearing the way to Cthulhu. And then, nothing. Except a word from our sponsor, Warframe, more specifically, the Whispers in the Walls. We are big fans of Warframe. They've been super nice to us, and we have put so many hours into Warframe over the last year or so that you guys just need to jump in. It's available now on all platforms, and they've got 10 years of content that they've been making that's all there for you for free. Huge cinematic set pieces and quest lines to go on that are super intriguing in this space adventure, and this is gonna be one of their new ones. Whisper in the Walls has mysteries for solving. Who is the man in the wall? Who are the Eldritch Murmur and the mysterious Albrecht Entrati? All these thrillers and things that you want to find out as you travel across the solar system. If you haven't jumped into Warframe before, you absolutely should. It's totally free. You get to play in these enormous suits that have so many cool and interesting features and weapons that you can all play in cooperative team play. And they're bringing out the new one, a 55th Warframe called Corvex that has like multi-layered radiation weaponry that you're going to get to play with, as well as a brand new void weapon called the Grimoire. That you're going to be able to equip as like a tome type device and get going with it. So it's the beginning of Warframe's brand new narrative arc. I recommend you jump in and get involved with it, because honestly, when I did, I ignored this game for so many years, and when I jumped in and found out just how much content is here, how much they keep updating it, and how much stuff they bring with it, it's absolutely extraordinary. So Whispers in the Walls is available now on all platforms. Go and check it out, guys. You're not going to regret it. No Cthulhu kill for 3 months. The Twin Emperors died on the 29th of January 2006. Cthulhu, the 25th of April. It's just common knowledge now that Cthulhu was just impossibly hard and Blizzard just did nothing. For 3 months. As an aside, it was Ian Hazzikostas, Watcher himself, long before working at Blizzard, that had mathed out Cthulhu's current immortal status. Can you imagine the race to world first now with something like this? It really was the Wild West back then. The end result was a world first by some silly, petty EU guild named Nihilum. They were very big in the EU, but on the global scale? And why did they get it? Well, the answer is interesting. A hotfix to Cthulhu went out to EU before the US, in the Wild West of Blizzard just pushing hotfixes whenever they were ready. Cthulhu literally died as the US was logging in the next day. Oh, that pesky EU head start. But what of the other bosses, the optional bosses? Well, Uro died after Cthulhu did. The day after, actually. After the hotfixes. But Viscidus died on the 5th of March, 2 months before Cthulhu died, and a month after Twin Emperor. How many guilds killed it? 1 guild. 1 guild did the impossible, that the community thought just needed to be fixed. 1 guild managed to figure it out. Death and taxes had always been in the top contention discussion, picking up a world first on Firemore in July 2005. Have you ever heard the phrase, kite it to Vale's room? Well, it's old school, but it comes from Death and Taxes. I'll link an article below for more details on that for those of you interested. Death and Taxes had proven themselves more than capable of getting that world first, their name being well known globally for the invested followers of the early kills. Disaster struck for them in AQ, however. The opening of the gates was different per server, depending on how popular the realm was and the contribution of the players to the war effort. Death and Taxes Gate opened much later than others, and with the EU early fix, Cthulhu just wasn't possible. However, their Viscidus kill, that was shrouded in mystery even to its newest members, had shown them in a brighter light than anything else. They were so good, they had killed what was thought to be an unkillable boss. And thankfully, for those hungry raiders, the necropolis was coming.
You have no idea what horrors lie ahead. You have seen nothing. The frozen heart of Naxxramas awaits you.
It's important to remember that even by the end of Vanilla, 7 months after Naxxramas was released, less than 2% of the player base even went inside. Nax was for the best of the best of the best. At this point, the player base is still exploding at the same rate it had since the game was released 2 years earlier. It should be noted that the player base didn't mind that there were raids they couldn't ever hope to see. They had plenty of content from Molten Core to Encourage for them to do, and similar to today's Mythic raids, the rest of the player base was happy to see what their realm heroes would achieve. This was it. The first real race to world first. Global eyes on what these players were doing. And all we could do as non-raiders was watch in awe as these people went in and we got kill updates via the forums. This was about the time when there was gentlemen's agreements going on between the guilds. Nobody would release a video of a boss kill until that boss had been killed 5 times. And then it was the precedent of whichever guild had killed it first to release their video first. No live streams, no live updates. Only way you could get information if you were stuck on a boss was to whisper a friend or somebody in that guild and hope they would give you info, or friends share little things. Where do you start? Naxxramas has 4 wings open to you when you get inside. And without live streams like we have today, where you can watch the top guilds go here, try this boss, try that. So by the time you get in there, you know exactly where to go. This time, it was different. Afterlife head to the Spider Wing and make short work of Anubra Khan, but find Fairlina to be their first wall. Fury head into the Death Knight Wing and crush Resuvius, but Gothic is a weird boss. Needs raid balance the game hasn't seen before, so they get stopped. Surreal, they decide to go to the Plague Wing, kill Noth really quick. But we all know that the next up is Hygen the Unclean. Not only is the dance tricky, but at launch Hygen would lag the whole game out. After the first day, 3 bosses are down. Only Patchwork, the biggest output chain the game had ever seen, remained standing of the first wing bosses. The following day, Afterlife, who had stayed and pushed the Spider Wing, managed to kill Fairlina, and then nothing for 2 days. By this time, word was spreading fast that Nax was hard. Really hard. In our garage, half the raid was dead and cleared by day 1, and here we are day 3 and only 4 bosses have died. Rumours were spreading that Nax was a literal meat grinder. The shock came on day 4. Death and Taxes rose. Patchwork, the boss already being called the monster of the raid, was defeated, and shockingly, they killed Grobulus and Gluff on the same day, showing that Patchy was indeed harder than the bosses he protected. Death and Taxes were now staring down at Thaddeus. Well, we'll come back to that. The final boss of the reset to die was Mexner, by Forgotten Heroes, and after an entire week with the best of the best, pushing 8 bosses had died, and no sign yet of Nihilum, the EU champions. Although the record book of first kills doesn't show it, Nihilum were chasing, just behind everyone, as the US domination seemed to be repeating, and maybe this time no strange bugs would give EU a win. Deathly silence on progress for 6 whole days. Again, unheard of in the modern era. 7 bosses alive and no kills? For those who have recently played Classic WoW and maybe even smashed Naxxramas, you may be confused. Nax has been done, analysed, reanalyzed, guides have been made, articles written, private servers farmed for years. The increased difficulty of modern raids and so on and so on. In 2006, players just didn't have the knowledge or the resources the modern audience has. Just look at these videos of the first kills. No range trackers for healers to see who they could heal or if they couldn't. No world buffs, no flasks. That kind of thing just wasn't done. It was unheard of. Flasking a whole raid was well beyond the reach of a raid guild in terms of costs and resources. Day raiding wasn't a thing outside of the first day. The min-maxing of characters that has been studied and refined for 20 years just didn't exist yet. They were not only playing blind, but also with a power level drastically lower than what those of you in Classic probably used. On the 30th of June, 10 days after the raid had opened, Death and Taxes did it again. They did something the other Nax guilds wouldn't do for months. They defeated Thaddeus. Just think of how Thaddeus works. Its main mechanic, polarity shift, constantly changing whom you could stand next to in the chaos that is a 40-man raid. Now do it with 0 add-ons. Although add-ons did come later in vanilla, they certainly weren't around in the first few days. And then add the crappy PCs people were playing on in 2006, and it shows just how good they were. At this point, They were killing bosses nobody else could, and they seemed the early favourites to take it all. Fury had stuck to the Death Knight wing and managed Gothic on the same day. 10 down, 5 to go, but the difficulty is spiking hard now. A few days later, after some hotfixes, Risen showed their name by bringing down Hygen the Unclean. This opened the door to the consumable, demanding Lowertheb. The hotfix allowed others to pass through Hygen shortly after. Guilds got to farming shadow protection potions for the 40 people to chug, and it was Deus Vox who brought down the final Plague Wing monster of a boss. 2 weeks after Hygen had died. That's right, my friends. It has now been a month since Naxxramas released, and there are still 3 bosses standing. The forums were ablaze. How the hell do you deal with the 4 horsemen? So many guilds had reached them, and everyone had been humbled, and humbled fast, by the former heroic souls atop their steeds. And this is where the raid takes a historical, dark turn. Tanks, warriors, especially those with some Naxxramas gear, were disappearing like some alien invasion. Guilds were being raided across the realms. Remember, this is the pre-realm transfer, so these thefts were crippling the guilds on each server. Suddenly, guilds with a little bit of Nax progress couldn't go any further as their warriors were all vanishing, and they had to recruit from lower down the tent pole and reprogress. It became apparent that the guilds working on 4 horsemen needed those warriors, and as such, were poaching from their competition rather than hoping to eventually get the gear on reclears. While strats are different in the 2020 version of Nax, back then 8 warriors were desired. The reason was that Nax warrior tier sets had a bonus where their taunt ability wouldn't get resisted, and the horsemen needed it. The gap between the top and everyone else just got wider. While the top guilds poached and moved forward, the lower down guilds fell further behind. Guilds were complaining endlessly of how they were being hamstrung, but it didn't matter. The hardest race in history was still going strong. And then, out of nowhere, like a sudden air raid siren blaring through the streets, the forums were reignited into a frenzy. 5 weeks in. The news spread across the world almost instantly. Death and taxes had done it. The 4 horsemen were dead. All 4 wings were clear, and Sapphiron was available.
I truly wish I could let you know how exciting this was and frustrating at the same time. We had been following this race for months, and all we could do was sit back and refresh the web pages over and over again, waiting for some kind of update. Had this boss died? Why were the 4 horsemen so difficult? What was causing these guilds to get stuck? And more importantly, what was this undead dragon going to be like?
Like the absolute pros they are, Death and Taxes released a teaser video of the Sapphiron formation for the world to see. And what a spectacle it was. It probably looks kind of mid to people now, but in 2006, there was nothing like this animation in the whole game. It was simply amazing. We all sat back in awe at what these champions were facing down. Frost resist was the key, and thankfully the guild Dread of Korgath lent their frost runes to Death and Taxes to build their frost resist armor for the fight. After a full week of crafting this new armor, re-clearing the raid, Sapphiron fell. The block for it being just frost resistance rather than mechanical difficulty, a sort of wet end to what was about to come. But the gates were open to Kel'Thuzad. But 2 days later, Sapphiron fell again. The EU guild Nihilum were right behind them.
What we're about to discuss is probably the most frustrating
and disheartening thing you will ever hear of happening in World of Warcraft. But one thing to remember is that by today's standards, this could never, ever happen again. Back in old WoW, though, it will not be the last time. The issue is genuinely propaganda. No streaming, no regular updates, so info on what was happening between these two guilds was leaks and hearsay. It was also relatively common to have faked screenshots and lies be told by the guilds to rattle the competition. So how do we get the truth, my friends? Well, we go to the source. I reached out to both Death and Taxes and Nihilum, to the soldiers who were there that fateful week to find out what really happened. I want to give this moment a shout out to Lenny from D&T and the crew of his old members who answered any questions I had. Also a shout out here to Close from Nihilum, who bought me many Danish beers in Copenhagen recently, making me very drunk, but also accepted my gift for his new baby, which became their favorite Christmas present. Smiles, Kenny. 5 days. 5 days. After this 2.5-month journey from Naxxramas release, it was just 5 days from Saffron falling for Kel'Thuzad to end up in his phylactery. Both guilds agree that Kel'Thuzad wasn't particularly hard, especially compared to what they had already faced, and you recently saw the hardcore version die on its first pull. So what happened? Forum chatters would have you believe that Nihilum just played better and won in the end. Hell, it's what I thought for a long time. Radio silence was coming from the US, but in the EU, screenshots were being released of Nihilum getting Kel'Thuzad to 1%, not just once or twice, but a few times. If it wasn't that hard, and Nihilum arrived second, and D&T had cracked the hardest bosses in this raid so far, then how? How could it be that they didn't win? Were they just burnt out? Did they just drop the ball on the last boss? Well, neither. You see, my friends, it is extremely hard to kill a boss that doesn't exist. Death and Taxes approached Kel'Thuzad full of fire in that frosty tomb he called a home, and they got to work. The first couple of pulls, they are seeing what he does, getting their positioning down, and after pull 5, though, something strange happens. Kel'Thuzad just doesn't respawn, and his gate to his room is closed. Death and Taxes stare through the bars at an empty room and no boss. These days, during the Race to World First, the players have access to a Discord that has the developers in there. Should there be something important happening, they can have instantaneous communication. We saw that with the most recent Race to World First. Tindral was lagging everybody out, the devs are on it, and they feed that back to the players. They're going to be nerfs to the bosses, they find out. Are the players doing something that is not allowed? The devs can feed back immediately to stop doing that. But back then, you had to email customer support, and D&T tried everything. They emailed, they called the hotline, they tried reaching out to Bill's brother's sister's cousin who has a wife who may know somebody who works at Blizzard. To nothing. 4 days. 4 days. Death and Taxes, who had reached the last boss first, zoned into Naxxramas to stare at a closed gate and no boss behind it. Any lead they had built through their sheer amazing gameplay was lost. Nihilum didn't have this issue. Yet. The boss didn't bug out in the EU. For a couple of days, Nihilum got to progress and work on the boss that Death and Taxes couldn't even attempt. Despite the rumors of a fake screenshot, Close confirmed it was absolutely true. Nihilum did have several 1% wipes before again, disaster. On the Tuesday, just before the EU reset, Kel'Thuzad didn't respawn and their gate closed as well. The difference being, Death and Taxes hadn't even seen past Phase 1, despite their early arrival. With the EU reset coming, Nihilum sprung to action. Close called into work sick, as did many others, so they could day raid. Again, at the time, a super hardcore move, and even more extreme than that, they got world buffs and flasked the whole raid. This is absolute absurdity. Mountains of nerd sweat never before seen in this game. They fully re-cleared Naxxramas that morning, and on the 7th of September, Kel'Thuzad was defeated. This was such a monumental moment that their server was flooded with level 1s to share in the celebration of EU dominance of the raid and over the US guilds. Nihilum killed Kel'Thuzad just as Death and Taxes reached his gates again. Can you imagine how this must have felt for those players? They had pushed, they had killed, they had figured out the hardest bosses of this raid before anyone else. 2.5 months of slogging away, farming, refarming, crafting, negotiations, tactics, and discussion, only to stand staring at an empty room for nearly 4 days, and then have all the glory taken away. I quote here from Lenny, who recounted to me that moment and how they felt. We were pretty deflated, as you'd say. So once we got the bad news, people weren't playing as well. There was a bit of an argument about how much frost resistance we should wear for a moment. Overall, the hit to our morale cost us US first, since another guild snagged that after learning the strategies for the Four Horsemen, Saffron, and then probably had an easier time with Kel'Thuzad from the momentum of their catching up. You heard it right. Death and Taxes was so down they didn't even get the US first. A crushing and terrible stain on the history of the Race to World First. And thankfully, this is something that couldn't happen now.
The first ever Race to World First will go down in history as cementing Naxxramas as when the game took to the next level. For the first time ever, millions of gamers gathered around like armies to watch their heroes battle against these large monsters. Yes, it's filled with frustration for some, joy for others, but as we all know, that's not where the story ends. Next time, we're off to the Burning Crusade. Betrayal, manipulation, happiness, victory. It's all going to happen for us here. So thank you everybody who's supported us in our journey, and we'll see you again next time. Goodbye. On the 10th of July 2009, a guild came along that no one had been paying attention to, despite them getting a world 10th on Algalon the Observer, and they went on to kill Yogg-Saron Zero Lights as the first team in Europe or North America. This guild then went on to crush everything in their path. They developed strategies that no one else could think of and cement themselves, even to this day, as potentially the greatest raiding guild World of Warcraft has ever seen. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the legacy of Paragon.
So where does Paragon come from? And don't say Finland, we're going to get to that. As with all the major guilds, even to this day, 20 years on from World of Warcraft's launch, many of them, shockingly, were always near the top. We traced them all the way back to vanilla, to a Finnish-only guild called Grim Sight, who started to stand above the rest of the players on the server. They were famous for claiming their server's Kazakh kills over and over again, despite the fierce server competition for those kills. But they thirsted for more, as many raiders do, and then the theory and work of mergers. Merger after merger after merger starts taking place until they eventually formed a guild called Beyond Redemption. Now, Beyond Redemption were awesome. They claimed the coveted World 5th on Kel'Thuzad all the way back. Then, more merges. And more merges. An ongoing process of trying to find the best of the best players was an ongoing thing, all the way up until Wrath of the Lich King. It was at this point there's two guilds, Knockout and Sauna. Both of them little inconsistent on the roster, a myriad skill level, and so then, with the leadership of Satyr and Balthor and others, they were joined together to form the ultimate team. Paragon has arrived.
When it comes to this young upstart guild, Paragon, there is one unique feature that we all know about. They all came from one singular country. This is so unusual in today's internet age.
Oh, poor Preach. Look at you, scurrying like a rat. Yet you have no idea what awaits you. Little historian, pleading for laughter in the suffocating void. You and your world will be mine.
And you've got to imagine that gave them various advantages, being able to travel out and see their friends immediately after a boss kill. When I was speaking to some of the members of Paragon, they universally agreed that their all-finish approach was a massive key to their success. Imagine the simple things. I take it for granted that I am a native English speaker and that the English language is currently the most spoken language in the world. However, it's mostly a second language for many. There are barriers, shyness that is developed because maybe you're not quite understanding exactly what is being said. For Paragon, though, it was the absolute opposite. People could be themselves. They could be free every single time. Everybody I spoke to in Paragon universally agreed that the fact that they could have annual cottage trip meetups, that they could see their friends regularly, it gave them a camaraderie and a successful road that literally no other guild in the world could utilize.
What was interesting in the raid scene was the reaction to this big play, their world's second Yogg-Saron Zero Lights. As we talked about in our Insidia video, many of the top guilds never bothered with Yogg Zero. They considered it pointless, and in some ways they dismissed Paragon's achievement. Their world's second was, of course, it was impressive, but also, the big raider boys, they weren't pushing, they weren't trying, so don't get cocky, boys.
So now, Trial of the Crusader is here. And you might think to yourself, based on what just happened, that Method, Insidia, Premonition, those guilds weren't fearful of Paragon. At least that's what they were saying, right? Paragon's kill of Yogg-Saron, it was a fluke. They got lucky. We weren't even trying. We were ignoring the boss. All those things are technically true, but I could tell you firsthand that that wasn't really what was happening internally. You see, at this very moment, I was under my trial for Method. I was making my run to be a world-first raider. Now, Trial of Crusader, we had decided, rightfully so, to divide the guild into 4 10-man groups for Heroic. And this meant that we collect all the best loot we can before we go into the 25-man and go for the big prize. So we're chilling, we're having fun. It's easy, it's not a big deal. We're clearing it really quickly. And after we killed the Twin Valkyrs, the atmosphere changed. Suddenly, a halt was called on the raid. We were told to stop, don't do anything else. I'm still in trial, so I'm a little bit confused, and I'd never seen the guild behave this way because I joined essentially during a farm period. About a minute or so later, one of the officer team joins our group in the chat. It's then stressed to us how important it is that we succeed, that we do well. Because out of all the groups that had gone into TOC, we were the only ones that had reached the last boss without a death. And you might not know, but there was an achievement, a special achievement. The Tribute to Insanity 10-man that we could have achieved as long as we killed a new Barak without any deaths. And the reason? Really important that we take that kill away from Paragon and put Method in the world first notoriety position. This was really important that we were stressed to. So I was fired up, right? I am so excited. I'm going to get like a world first decent reward literally under my trial phase. This is sick. And the whole team was feeling it. It was like, yeah, dudes, we're going to go in. And then we spent like 10 minutes talking strategy. We're all like, oh yeah, okay, you go here, and then you go here. And we wiped in like the first 10 seconds, which sucked for sure. But like also we had no idea what the boss was going to do, and that in Heroic it was completely different to what we'd seen before. It wasn't good, but the point was, this outward feeling that Paragon was a nothing, that wasn't true. People knew who they were and that they were coming.
Trial of the Crusader was a pivotal moment though. It was the first time Paragon showed that they weren't a one-trick pony. They weren't going to be doomed to be rank 2, 3 or 4 forevermore, and that they had an ability that surpassed their competition. This would become Paragon's calling card. It was the ability to outthink their competition. Here's the world first kill, and you will notice a rather odd string of messages in yellow right above the mid-section of the screen. Paragon had discovered a way to bypass one of the most difficult parts of the encounter. For whatever reason, a paladin's AoE stun to undead didn't cause a diminishing return. If you're not sure what that means, when you stun something, it lasts its proper time, but if you stun it again, it lasts shorter and so on until it can't be stunned. They could just stun the ads over and over again until they died. It reduced a huge amount of potential damage and risk on the raid. And with this tech, and of course, their astonishing gameplay, Paragon claimed an undisputed world first.
The thing is, everybody loves an underdog. They were sick and tired of these regular names, these methods, insidious, the corporatization, the money involvement that was going on in raiding, and then suddenly these Finnish guys show up and just start crushing face. When they killed Nubarak using this stun maneuver, a lot of other guilds, like we mentioned in our Insidia video, were waiting for the public to be outspoken about them cheating, about them exploiting. Nope. People liked them. They weren't going to be like that. People liked Paragon. That was just clever use of game mechanics. They would bash on Insidia and crap all over them for using flower power and all that stuff. But when it came to Paragon, those boys got a free pass.
Paragon's forums are still up and they're live with thoughts on progress, raiding, internal operations. It's a really wonderful read if you want to have a bit of a nerd session. The routine of Paragon was, for that time, extremely hardcore. Remember, we're still predating full-time raiding, professional guilds, things like that. So Cruff explained a typical progress day for them. They would raid from 6 PM until 2 AM. After that, they had to go and do dailies, heroics, all for that Valor Point cap to get more items. They would sleep at 4 AM, then they would go to work at 9 AM, come straight home, and repeat until the boss was dead. It's Rakes in an article who goes on to explain how easy it could be to burn out on WoW and pushing this hard. But it was the camaraderie, the social elements of the guild offered that no one else could that made it all worthwhile for them. So, onwards they pushed.
There's got to be a theme happening here for the next little while, and that is the raid scene is a really toxic place. There are more attempts to diminish Paragon's achievements than I've ever seen levied at any guild ever, and that includes the bickering between the hardcore fans of Liquid and Echo. There's a message here. Paragon weren't welcome. They weren't wanted. They weren't part of the established order. That's the vibe I get from talking to a lot of people across the raid scene, is these guys just came in and they didn't want them. Paragon is going to have to fight the good fight and be accused of cheating and exploiting constantly, and not just by people on the outside and observers. I'm talking about other guilds. Internally though, this was something that Paragon fought really hard to not be a part of. It was actually a core value. They hated the stress and drama that existed in the raid scene and just worked hard to resolve any issues as much as possible. Not that they regularly did not have to defend themselves. But here's the thing, and I think you're gonna like this. Paragon always brought the receipts.
So the first of these, of course, was the Anubarak stuns. The second was less obvious. Accusations began to fly that Paragon or their fans were behind the lag on Method's server Taran Mill. It was claimed that Paragon was using a phishing macro in Dalaran on Taran Mill, which would cause the whole server to lag out and it would disrupt Method's ability to raid. Now, I have no doubt, yes, this was absolutely happening and it was trolls being trolls, but Method had to and did respond. They decided, fine, we're going to move our whole guild to Paragon's server Lightning's Blade. If they were going to get trolled and the server was going to get rolled, then so were Paragon. Paragon's crowning achievement would of course come in Icecrown Citadel, as many of you know. After the early rush of guilds into the first bosses, Paragon pulled ahead with a world first on Professor Putricide. And after that, they just stayed in control. Their world first on Arthas itself is one of the most watched raid videos in history, with Usatonta still being called out to this day.
Kumpi taunttaa? Usso tauntaa.
Of course, it wasn't without controversy. This is Paragon, and they need to be diminished in some way. After what happened with the new Barak, this time accusations were that they were clearly exploiting the Lich King because everyone else found the fight too hard. This time they were trolling and bypassing mechanics by applying and removing HP buffs. This would cancel out the dangerous infest mechanic. This rumor and accusation started to spread quickly, and once again, Paragon brought the receipts, much to the annoyance of the obvious haters. They were just better. I don't mean just skill, but in fact, the reality was they once again outthought not only the other teams in the race, but the devs themselves. When the video was released, Paragon had come up with a strategy which then became the strategy. Instead of killing the floating spirits as was intended by the developers, they simply ignored them. They managed to control them with positioning, and they just got soaked by a paladin. It allowed them to keep nuking Arthas' face. The developers were shocked this could even work, but by clever positioning, clever strategy, they once again left their calling card on Arthas' corpse. They were just better. As far as I know, Paragon were legit the only guild that went on to kill the Lich King Heroic without using the Hellscream buff at all. And it wouldn't end there. Cataclysm's first raid was Paragon outthinking everyone, while of course, also once again, being called cheaters. The most famous of these is Nefarian Heroic and the 11 Fuzzy Boys. Hilariously, it was the guild Stars of Yogg-Saron World First fame that called out Paragon on MMO Champion of all places. They then claimed that Paragon was an embarrassing guild, only capable of winning via exploits, and the fact they hadn't killed Nefarian since the fight was quote-unquote fixed proved that they must have cheated and exploited their world first kill. I think we should clear this up once and for all. Why, when you watch this video, are there 11 druids? Well, it was simple. Nefarian gave some players a damage amplification buff that only applied to the next spell that character cast. One-time use, that's it. Feral Druids Rip, their damage over time bleed, was the most damaging single target spell in the game. So amping it up to absurd degrees made it do a ton of damage, but that isn't the whole story. In order to make this whole thing work, every druid who was just sat there had to get 5 combo points, save all their trinkets, save their cooldowns, and just wait to see if the game chose them for the damage buff. Outside of that, they had to almost AFK, basically do no damage in case they got the buff and then couldn't cast Rip if they'd spent their points. It was a massive trade-off they weren't even sure was worth it. Now, mathematically, it should have been better. And the druids can also use their AoE heals, etc. for the big damage that was going out in the fight, so it had some usage. But that's it. No exploit, no druid-specific thing, just hope the game boosts up the druids who are sat waiting, and hope it does a lot of damage, which it did. Pretty simple stuff. It should also be pointed out the irony. Stars, if you don't know, accusing Paragon of class-stacking exploits. They, themselves, had blown the world away by stacking Warlocks in their world first of Yogg-Saron for the exact same reason. Those classes just played better in the final phase. And yes, I know it looks daft today, but 5 of one class in a raid at that time was crazy. It was the same as the things we had to do with Shamans in the Sunwell. Alakir was the next big brain play that met with frustration from the other guilds. You can almost feel the fists clenching. It was considered at the raid scene at the time as an unkillable boss. It was broken, it couldn't be done. And then, wouldn't you goddamn know it, Paragon killed it. How? How? People cried. How is this happening? Well, we soon found out. They just hid their players far away from the fight for all of Phase 1 to get around the impossible part, and then they jumped over and executed the rest of the fight. Once again, as Alakir dwindled away into the winds, all that was left was that classic Paragon calling card on another corpse. Strategy-wise, gameplay-wise, Paragon is just leaps and bounds above everybody at this point. It's not even close. While everyone else is like working really hard and thinking about how to get over this really steep wall that Blizzard's put in front of them, Paragon just found a way of just walking around it more times than not. And now the Firelands is coming. Daddy's coming. Big Fireboy himself. Method, though, they're not ready to go to that world's second place they've been stuck in since the Burning Crusade. Not by a long shot, and they're bringing the noise. When it came to this raid, I think it was put best by Jazroom, Paragon's pony-loving priest. No one is prepared for the locomotive magnificence of the Fire Lord's lower limbs. It was Method that claimed the first big wall, Balorok. 10 hours later, Paragon did that, and then the next boss named Major Domo, an hour before Method killed it. Both guilds are basically neck and neck on Big Boy Raggy. And when all was said and done, widely considered to be one of the greatest raid bosses ever made, fell a full week earlier to Paragon. At this point, it's hard to deny that Paragon were more than worthy of being on the pantheon of WoW raiding guilds. But then irony strikes. All this talk of exploits and Paragon dodging them like Neo was about to strike disaster. The Dragon Soul LFR exploit has been widely covered by us on the channel, and Paragon was included. So many of their players were a week behind on gear. They had no access to the mega gems that eventual World First Raiders Kin Raiders had, and so their winning streak was ended. Now, you would think that this might be chalked up to experience. They weren't the only ones that got hit by this, so lesson learned and go on your merry way. There's always next time, right? But that wasn't the case for Paragon. It hit them hard internally. Some players had vacations planned, and Paragon just went dark. No communication, no nothing for a really, really long time. It wouldn't be until June 2012 that an article came up on the site to address their seemingly disappearance. And it was played down somewhat. Things were fine internally. We were all in Finland and people were enjoying the summer. Some players had graduated, but everything was good. And remember, Mr. Pandaria is on its way, and Paragon will be back in fine form. That's not entirely true. I've spoken to several members of Paragon in creating this video, and they're all wonderful, wonderful people. Some of them didn't reply, which is fine, but one thing that was for sure is how shy they are. It was actually surprising, considering their world first platform they were on, but I'm not talking about don't want to talk or anything like that, but literally shy. Some of them even sent me paste bins of thoughts because they wanted time to get it together and make it work, and it was wonderful to see, but one thing bled through this that's so different. We look at the race to world first now. It's got corporate elements, there's a huge amount of money involved, it's a spectacle, it's a show, and it has brought me and you and the players wonderful things. But Paragon, from everything I could tell, from everything everybody said to me, even off the cuff of their own thing, they played for the love of the game and that's it. Money wasn't a thing. Corporate investment and futures and careers wasn't a thing. They played because they were a bunch of friends who liked gaming and wanted to game at the highest level, but they just wanted to game. That's not to say they didn't have sponsors. They had Asus, they partnered with Dream, but this was literally to just give them cool opportunities to do with their friends. They got to travel to China, they got to go to BlizzCon, they got to do all this stuff, but ultimately it wasn't about money. When I brought up the money situation to them, they were like, we just didn't talk about that stuff. We just wanted to play. And in this day and age where there are people getting into the race to world first who are money focused, it's amazing to see that these were the dudes that were just in it because they wanted to play. They lost players. There was bickering internally. The conversation about maybe it's time to recruit outside of Finland came up, but it was quickly dismissed at this time. The potential of the new players they did get wasn't world first standard. And so with the we just want to play the game in mind, the announcement was made that Paragon was going 10-man, preferring to keep the internal foundation and core of the guild the same and just do what they love. On a personal note, this was really sad for me. I loved Paragon. I was a member of the opposing team, but still, Paragon were amazing. They were so good, and this basically was the end. 10-man's great. It's wonderful. Lots of fun. I enjoy it, but it's not the same. It's not the big show. It's not the big dance. And might as well, Paragon should have stopped then, in my eyes. It was awful. Their crowning achievement during this, of course, was the world first 10-man Garrosh heroic kill, accompanied, of course, by a Sparkle Pony, where they solo healed it and amazed everybody, and proved once again that they are the best in the world at what they do. It just wasn't in the big arena where we wanted to see them. But with Warlords of Draenor around the corner, we all desperately wanted them to return after seeing that kill. And return they did.
They got really lucky. There was actually another Finnish-only 10-man raid guild called Depraved that grabbed the world's second Garrosh. Now, it's not a mystery as to what comes next. They glued them together, raised the toast, and announced that Paragon was back. They were coming back for the new 20-man raid roster size of Warlords of Draenor, and they were coming back for the title. It's so funny they played that classic calling card again. While Method was bashing into the Butcher, Mythic, and Highmaul, the toughest boss of all time, blah blah blah, Paragon realized they could just not do it and just go and kill the last boss and claim the world first instead, which is exactly what they did. Paragon, in their first raid back, were right back on top. And for us, spectators, the world was at peace once again. It was a party everywhere. For a brief time. The Blackrock Foundry. It was close, man. It was really, really close. One of the tougher bosses, and my personal favorite, the Blast Furnace for Method and Paragon, were literally within 7 hours of each other. After that, though, Paragon just couldn't keep up. Method were in their stride, and they're not about to go back to world second status. It ain't happening. When talking to Frago about this, who was a member at the time, as Blackhand fell for Method, in his mind, this was the first fully undisputed, no qualms, no ifs, ands, or buts, race loss Paragon had suffered. Every other time there was something that could be pointed to, some reason, some weirdness, but not this time. They just didn't have that all-round package. New recruits were a mixed bag. But more importantly, and a common theme that we see, the vibe had changed.
We're quite a few videos into this history and legacy of WoW right now, and I wanted to talk to you guys because there's a common theme coming out. Whether it be the $1 million guilds or some normal mode guild, one thing you're seeing throughout all these is it's not the money, it's not the skill or anything like that. What changes and what ultimately kills these guilds is the vibe changes, the environment shifts, and when that changes, it crumbles. If you can keep it though, you can keep it going forever. It's the same as the mythic raiders who pushed for world first suddenly now are old men raiding heroic together despite it's not being a challenge or anything like that. Look, when the vibe of your guild changes, and you can't prevent it, if it can topple the greats, which we've seen, it can topple you as well. And that's okay, because that's life and that's growing up.
It's at this point the Finnish-only foundation of this wonderful guild was absolutely a problem. They knew it. We knew it. They talked far more seriously this time about opening the doors to the rest of the world. They debated it a lot, but ultimately, even the mechanics of transferring everything internally from Finnish back to English, spreadsheets, and all this kind of stuff, even though nearly everybody within the guild could speak English, was just going to be an enormous hassle. It would also just take away even more from the vibe that they wanted and had established. In HFC, Paragon did get some world firsts. Their display of absolute poetry and skill on Archimonde Mythic with the Raw Chaos is still a sight that I behold. I watch it all the time, but it also did highlight a weakness of the modern era of raiding. Paragon fell on what they knew. We outthink and we outplay the mechanics better than anyone else, and that is absolutely true. But the times had changed. The tech was better. And Method in that way was just way ahead. Instead of coming up with some beautiful, gorgeous strategy to outplay the mechanic, they just used an add-on and ignored it. And instead of that fancy gameplay, they just smashed face into the boss all along the way.
With this back-to-back loss, on the 25th of February, Paragon decided to disband. In the end, after speaking to them and going over everything, their biggest strength, their uniqueness, their Finnish-only approach, kind of ended up being their biggest weakness as well when it came to keeping everything going. Paragon, to me, are the last of the old guard, the last of the old ways, the last of the major world-first competition, the actual game changers who played for the love of the game only, and they stuck to their guns. They absolutely maintained everything that made the start of their guild, that massive road to success, the same. It's unfortunate it wasn't sustainable. A lot of the players still play today. You can see them in a lot of the top guilds, and you'll see them members in Echo even. Paragon to me are a shining example that absolutely belong on the Mount Rushmore of raiders. They're phenomenal. Watching them is a joy, and I still regularly rewatch their videos whenever I get a chance. But they're not the last ones who belong on that Mount Rushmore. I'll be saving that for next time. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and be sure to check out our website, check out our links down below for lots of references. And if you bump into any members of Paragon, give them a hell yeah, because they were awesome. To you all! Hello, 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 and welcome once again on a fine Friday. Holla boys and a brofist to you all! Hello, 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 and welcome once again on a fine Friday afternoon after another tremendous week with Skyrim being complete Oblivion. We had 4 hours with Oblivion. It's got me. We'll be coming back to that sooner rather than later. And of course, on Monday, we will be with OK Mage to check out Valheim. We'll be having some fun. We'll have some co-op shenanigans for the next few days over there. Very exciting week coming up for us. It's going to be good. It's going to be fun. It's going to be large. It's very exciting. Yes, a lot of... Not... Okay, you can see everybody arguing that we're not going to play it again that soon. But we will be. We will be back. We will be back with some RoboCop shenanigans mixed in there as well. And of course, for those of you here live, these glorious people who've been with us today, the show does not end at the end of drama time. It is once again back. We're watch-along night. We're having a movie watch-along after this of Suburban Sasquatch. It's finally available on YouTube, and we're going to be watching along for it. So for any of you out there who want to watch it on YouTube and stick our POV on alongside it, you'll be able to do that. And me and Chris will be joining you. It's going to be a fun night. Grab your popcorn, grab some fun, because it's going to be a very silly, very ridiculous movie. But it's not why you're here right now. Hell no! You're here because, once again, from all over the globe, people have been sending us tales of the weird and wonderful things that happen to them while they're playing online games. And we, of course, encourage you to send your tales to us. It's at drama@preachgaming.com. The game doesn't particularly matter. It's all about the people behind the keyboard that are hiding here, doing those super wonderful, special, crazy things that only can happen when you're hidden behind the keyboard. Because you would never do it in real life, right? Absolutely not. Our first tale has been sent to us about are these people shits? So we need to, it sounds like we've got to render ourselves some judgment here over whether these are bad people or good people. I personally choose to see the good in people until proven otherwise, so I will not render judgment early, unlike maybe some members of our audience who will assume that they are baddies in some way, shape or form. I, of course, as the impartial, unbiased, and one and only, never forget it's titled Never Forget. The title is Never Forget. But yes, get your stories into us at drama@preachgaming.com, and our lovely Bex will go through them and see what she believes is worthy here, or send you just a nice email response, or whatever it's going to be. Okay. Never forget. Our story appears to take place, of course, in the world of Azeroth is where we're starting, but globally, somewhere very, very different. Let's get into it for this week. Hello, Mike! Hello, Vex! And hello, the chat. I hope that you are having an awesome Friday and are ready for the weekend. I certainly am. I've been a long-time fan, but I've never really submitted any stories, so it was time I send you some things because I had the misfortune, or perhaps the fortune, of having brothers of a similar age, where we thought trolling was the funnest thing in the world. I sense that our author may, in fact, be guilty, ladies and gentlemen. I sense the guilt from here. I sense it large. All right, here we go. Mikey, I do not come from the land of Europe. I do not come from the land of the United States or Canada. In fact, I am below them geographically. We hail from Team Mexico. Voila. And we have been playing World of Warcraft all the way back in the vanillest of the vanilla. This tale that I wish to weave for you today was when I was 15 years old. My middle brother, Trucy, was 12. And the smallest of us, Tylonin, was 10. That is a very busy household, but I guarantee you guys had a lot of fun. You had a lot of fun. 3 brothers. 3 brothers with 5 years between them. All right. Mike, we were poor. So when we wanted to get into World of Warcraft, our parents bought us 1 account. Under the assumption that we probably wouldn't like it and it would be a waste of money. That's right. All 3 of us had to play on 1 single account. That's pretty horrific. And that older brother is claiming that one. The good news is we fell in love. We had so much fun. And we got so hooked that we managed to get a game each. God bless. Now, as how we were able to pay for it without a credit card from our parents and forking over 45 bucks a month, we bought gameplay cards. We were fortunate enough to be living in a big city near the border, so every month or 2 we would go over the border shopping. Are you going into like New Mexico or Texas or something to get game cards? It's kind of a play. Or just sometimes we would go on a vacation across the border. Our parents would give us a little bit of money so we could buy something, and we would spend it all on game time. Ah, Team Mexico just popping over the border to go shopping in the United States and get their game cards and come back just for a day out. How nice. Now, ladies and gentlemen, my brothers and I are by no means hardcore gamers. Oh no. But we aren't shit. Far from it. When we started gaming, we weren't clickers. Brackets, how the fuck are people clickers even in this day and age? The bar literally has numbers written on it. How is this hard? Close brackets. I mean, I was a clicker when I started. I'm pretty sure does the game tell you, or did it tell you back then to click the spells? I mean, I started as a clicker. I was a clicker all the way through vanilla. I was a keybinder in the Burning Crusade, but I was a clicker all the way through vanilla. I just got used to it. And it's really hard to break the habit once you've started. It's really hard. So we got the hang of MMOs really easily. We played in an alliance side on one of our servers because our friends were also playing Alliance. Now, Mike, I want to share with you and the audience 3 shameful stories. But more accurately, I think I could describe these 3 as activities that we spent a lot of our WoW game time doing. Is this gonna make me really upset? Because there's 3 of you, like a pack of wolves, right? Like, there's definitely a trifecta wolf action going on here. In Vanilla and the Burning Crusade, I decided to create a dwarf priest. Trucy made a night elf warrior, Shadow Meld. What did the other brother make? They've got a priest, a warrior, and... Come on. What have they got? They're a priest, a warrior, and... Oh, okay, one of you got it, but not all of you. You had some suspicions. A human rogue. Tylonin will be our human rogue, and Trucy will be our night elf warrior. Now, apart from doing dungeons, which were fun, our main love was world PvP. You pieces of crap, because there's 3 of you, always. When you say world PvP, do you mean ganking people on their own with 3 of you? And you call it world PvP? Because I suspect that's what you mean by world PvP, is just chasing one person down and stabbing them in the fucking throat. Yeah, got him though. Owned, mate. Owned. So, Mike, we came up with a technique that was really cool. I would be the bait, because I was a priest. And what I would do was walk laps around the Horde territory near people killing mobs. Once a Horde decided to attack this poor, wandering priest that really only melee attacked and healed himself, Tyladin would immediately unstealth from behind, and Trucy would get out and we would murder him into the floor. He would respawn, and then we would do this again and again until they logged off. Sometimes they would try and leave. So we figured out that if we got Trucy to go to the graveyard and shadow meld there and wait for them to get res sickness, we could kill them more times. I hate to think how much time you did this for. It really does bother me. The worst case of this I've ever seen in my entire life was like a level 90 or something like that, who camped the first Horde base in Hellfire Peninsula for 10 days. And I'm not talking like for a couple of hours, for like 12 or 13 hours. That guy just hung out there, just killing anybody he could see. That's it. It was like a problem on the server, like a genuine problem. Yeah, Thrallmar, the guy just would just fly up and just float up there, drop down and kill some lobby, and then just do it over and over and over. Don't blame the player, blame the game. No, I'll blame the player as well. It takes a certain type of personality. I'm definitely going to blame the player as well for doing that. As I write this to you today, I wish I could tell you I had regrets. But it was honestly awesome, and we felt like kings. Okay, sure. It was awesome, and we felt like kings. Like, no regrets, even to this day. Like, you really fucking spoiled somebody's game time. Got him. But here it got worse, you see. Trucy's friend had a warlock. At this point, you could summon the golem outside and bring him inside Stormwind. He'd release the level 60 golem and start attacking everyone, even the auctioneers, and just be a hassle for most people to deal with, as very few people were level 60 in the city. We would do this every single cooldown of the golem and laugh our asses off while everybody got wrecked while they were trying to hide in the city. Get fucked. You see, this is the problem. My live audience is rats. Life, of course, does go on, though. And we stopped playing World of Warcraft until we had winter break of December 2012. I was going to graduate this month, and I had a job that was starting until February of 2013. So I had a whole month and a half to play before my real grown-up life and my brothers would go back to high school. We got a month for each and decided it would be fun to just create new characters to level together. This time around, I made a dwarf. Is this your second dwarf? A dwarf priest and a dwarf paladin. Who makes a dwarf paladin? Ever? A dwarf paladin? Why? It's Biss. Do you hate yourselves? Stone form. Alright, M plus Andes. Alright, M plus Andes. You don't... This is the burning fucking crusade. Or Wrathlich King. I don't know. There's Draenei here, so... but there's no M plus. It's not for stone form min-maxing, alright? It's a different era. We didn't even know about armor and hit rating back then. I made a dwarf paladin Trucy made a Draenei warrior, and Tyladin made another Worgen rogue. Nice. This time we wanted to have names that reflected that we were playing together. Oh no. This is good. I want you to set your cringe factor to maximum here. Set your cringe to full. At this point in time, the most fun me and my brothers had outside of game was quoting movies, which we still do all the time. One of the quotes that we loved a lot was from the movie Snatch. So in some ways, Mike, this is your fault for being English, and it's an amazing movie, really, and I recommend everyone watch it. Especially the point where Bricktop says cunt. Now, as you can probably tell, World of Warcraft will not allow you to type cunt into the game. However, we spent 40 minutes to find a workaround. And we found that KHUNT did work. So our grace was saved. My holy paladin was named Holy Cunt. The Draenei warrior of Trucy was beholden to Blue Cunt. And Tyladin's Worgen was... wait for it. Pube Cunt. Pube Cunt. He landed on Pube Cunt. The three... this is very, 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 very... yeah, I think nailed it. As the LFG was up and running by this time, there was no longer real blacklisting that worked in any way. So we could do whatever we wanted in dungeons now without being punished. So we came up with a plan. What we would do was sign up with tank, healer, and DPS so we would get it quickly. Firstly, we would enter the dungeon and then greet everyone, welcome, with an exclamation mark. We're the cunts, and we'll be cunting with you tonight. And now we would have fun with various macros that we would spam throughout the dungeon. I hate everything about this. Like, I mean, you would be on ignore so fast. Such things as, you cunt, you didn't aggro that mob. Or, you cunt, heal me. Things like that. Top lads, top banter. 10 out of 10, baby. Top banter all the time. Oh, yes. Now, some people didn't like it. They would ask us to stop. You know, things like that. Since we were the trifecta of tank, healer, and DPS, I would then just stop healing anybody who would question our macros. Lol. How old are you now? You're still laughing about it now. You literally wrote lol. Lol. We would be laughing our asses off at people raging or people just joking with us. What we always did was have another macro that said, never forget the day you played with the cunts in all caps. I wish I was, like, I'm not exaggerating or ad-libbing here. Let me control paste it for the chat here. There you go. Now, unfortunately, Mike, people started reporting us. We had to change our names around 10 times in a month because we would keep getting reported from doing these things with dungeons. However, Blizzard never were able to change the ability to type KHUNT. I don't remember all the names that we eventually came up with, but we basically just made more and more variations with cunt at the end. I do remember Tyland's Worgen particularly turning into hairy cunt, which the game allowed. Anyways, nowadays we all live like really separate. I'm in the USA, and two of my brothers are in Europe, and we don't really play together because of the hours, and also they lost interest in gaming with their real world. But we obviously do talk a lot. I remember the good old cunt days. We were talking about it recently. But I do still like to game. But because, oh, you're living in Europe. Because I now live in Europe, I couldn't bring my PC with me and had to look for an alternative. I've got a... This sounds really cheesy because we had a sponsorship. I use my crappy work laptop with GeForce Now. For context for our audio, since we had a GeForce Now sponsorship. Oh, there's a note here from Bex. This story arrived before we did any sponsorship. No joke. Okay. I did try FF14, but also started to hate the MSQ because of the ugly toad people. Toad people? Who are the toad people? Toad people? The Namazus? Not Lalas. You wouldn't describe the Lalas as toad people. I'm thinking Namazu? I think he means Lalas, because it says, it cringes me out. People want to choose those characters that walk like they have a stick up their ass. It's Lalas. Yeah, it's Lalas. Toad people? I have never heard the Lalas described as toad peoples. Potatoes, heretics, demons from hell, sure. Toad people? But Mike, I wanted you to know, as we were talking about it on the phone recently, about the legacy of the cunts. Hopefully I will make it to PreachCon someday, as I am quite close to the UK. I want to thank you all, and I hope everybody here never forgets and has a really cunty day. Oh, thank you for your little short story. Very nice. Very, very nice. Okay. The cunties. I cannot abide the serial ganking. Maybe I am... I don't think it's even full boomer. I don't think it's full boomer. Endless ganking sessions of people who have literally zero chance of victory does not... Let's just say it does not appeal to me in any way. Oh, Miss Cass is here. Big love to Miss Cass. Just had... Oh, you guys are in trouble. It's Cass and Gimpy. Oh god, if Bex has selected those names from our website supporters, you are in trouble. Okay, for our lovely live audience here though, we need 3 guild names. An European guild, we need 3 guild names, but they can involve some reference to dinosaurs. Okay, what do we got? The hairy cunts. Alright, I am going to get kicked off Twitch today. Alright, the hairy cunts. The Swanson G's. And what's the mixture name? They're going to be merging. So we need the Swanson cunts, the hairy Swansons. Yeah, just salute the last stream. It's morphin time. Alright, we'll go with it's morphin time as the guild merger name. Yeah, that's close enough to dinosaurs for me. So the hairy cunts, the Swanson G's become it's morphin time. Fair enough. Okay. I'm interested. Let's see where we're going with this one. I want to wish you all a good evening to Preach and the chat. I first off wish to thank you and Bex for reading this story, and I hope you find my tale of disaster entertaining. Looking back at it, this is really one of the biggest shit shows that I've ever heard of, that it's so bad it makes me laugh. So here it is. I come to you today, precious listeners, with a story of a game I'm not sure has ever been on Drama Time before. What is it? Ooh, oh! I actually want to play this. I suggested this for our Discord, our top tier Discord game, but it's a bit too involved, I think. I've been holding on to this for a while now, but the time has come, my friends, for me to bring it to the table. In this story, we are diving into the not-so-wonderful world of Ark Survival Evolved. Not even recent, modern Ark with all its problems. We're going back to the early release launch of 2015. 2015 Ark. Now, I haven't played Ark. Every time I bring it up for us to get a server or something, people just tell me it is janky in places. They're pushing AI stuff. I've no idea. I thought Ark 2 was on its way. I thought that was the play. I don't know what's... I can't say I've kept up with it. I am utterly broken would be a more accurate term. Okay. There's a lot of games out there that might fulfill your MMO needs, so why was I initially tempted into it? Well, like most people, it was the promise of taming cool dinosaurs. I am not sure if you remember, but I sent a story quite a while ago about camping the T-Rex King Crush. I do remember something about that during my summer break in high school. That does ring a bell. And so it was time for me to sojourn into a game like this, because, Mike, I really, really like dinosaurs. I agree. I think dinosaurs are badass. They're really cool. I love dinosaurs. I'll probably watch the new Jurassic Park movie. I know it's going to be bad, but I fucking love dinosaurs. I've seen them all. For those of you who might not be familiar with Ark, it's very similar to Rust. It's an open world multiplayer survival crafting game. But the biggest selling point of all, its big gimmick, is the fact that you can tame dinosaurs. And let me tell you, there are a lot of dinosaurs and other extinct creatures they've thrown in for fun. And they've only added more and more. Just Google list of creatures in Ark that you can tame. Every dinosaur has unique abilities and purposes. For example, a Stegosaurus could carry a ton of materials, while a Pteranodon acted as a flying mount, while a woolly mammoth could cut down trees with ease. Just play Palworld, bro. Get 2020 forward. Palworld does all that now, right? That said, one thing they decided to do was make that taming process hell. A literal nightmare. Wait till you hear it if you've never tried. This is interesting for me because I have never done this. So you find the dinosaur that you want, right? Typically, you're after high stats and high level. You want a good one. You then need to make it unconscious with tranquilizer arrows and keep it unconscious with either a special berry, aptly named narco berries, or sedatives. From there, you feed the animal its favorite food until a taming bar fills. How do you feed an unconscious dinosaur food? Doesn't make any sense. What do? Just shove food down its fucking throat? Do you just like shoo it in there or what? While it's drooling all over the floor? I mean, this makes me uncomfortable. That's all I'm going to say, man. It makes me a little uncomfortable. You then stuff food down its gullet, making sure it doesn't take damage. Oh, that will lower the stats. Mike, taming one of the better dinosaurs takes hours. Not just a few hours either. If you have a high-level Tyrannosaurus Rex, it can take all day to make it yours. And the thing that makes it worse throughout this entire process of keeping it in place, keeping it sedated, keeping feeding it, somebody can just run up and kill it. I mean, it was bad enough in vanilla doing the world bosses. This, I mean, surely you don't play it with other people that you don't know, right? That sounds like insanity to me. Like, if you were going to do this, you have a server where it's like your friends. Why would you go on a public server? Because you know there's jerk-offs there, right? Why would you go on a public server? It's got PvP. Who the fuck wants to do PvP in this environment? Oh my god. That sounds horrible. Okay. Oh, hi, brother. Say hi to Ribs, everybody. That is my brother in the chat. I see, brother. Now, using trank arrows and sedatives is how taming is supposed to work. But back in the day, we weren't high enough level to get those items. We also didn't know what we were doing. We had our own way of taming things. So this is what it boiled down to. Find ourselves a little monster. Beat the living fuck out of it with a rock. Continue to beat it with the rock to keep it unconscious. And then force feed it whatever we could find on the floor. This not only made the taming process completely inefficient and take longer, but the end result was a brain-damaged animal with horrible a brain-damaged animal with absolutely horrific stats. Awesome. So you woke up with a right gumpy. Ooh. It's safe to say that nearly every dinosaur in our collection was heavily concussed at all times. But I tell you what, it made them a little bit more lovable. And I really did love every dinosaur we tamed. But now we've set the scene for you all. Here is the tale that I wish to share with you all today. My friends and I got together and decided we were going to make a tribe. A guild. Now, if you thought the mechanics of taming dinosaurs were the only crappy, grindy part of this game, you would be very much mistaken. Dinosaurs are the gimmick and the selling point of the game, and that's where they've put the most focus. And the dinosaurs are jank, so you can only imagine how well the rest of the game plays. When I say grind, Mike, I don't mean like you who refuses to do anything that looks like a grind. I mean a grind. Building, which you can do, took a ludicrous amount of resources. Crafting was infinitely worse. It took hours to make anything. And with only 4 of us in our humble little tribe, it was some seriously painful work. But eventually, we managed to carve ourselves out a pretty sweet spot located in the middle of a little gully with a few tamed, brain-damaged creatures like brontosauruses, the King of New York, or the Phiomia petunia. It was something we were all really proud of. Our most prized possessions, though, our raptors. Raptors were basically horses of Ark, except they were raptors instead of horses, which is the coolest shit ever. They made traversing the island a breeze. They were fast, they were deadly, they were awesome. My raptor was the single coolest part of the game. I named him Tammy. Yeah, I know what you're thinking, Mike. Pretty badass. Tammy? Tammy Raptor. So, saying that, I named my mounts like Buttons and shit like that. So, yeah, Tammy will do. Tammy! We're going with Tammy. Now, as you may have surmised, ladies and gentlemen, we played on a public server. When you make cool stuff on a public server, it's not meant to last. Now, I want to be clear here to anybody who might bitch and moan. I get it. I get it. Griefing is a part of the immersion. Griefing is part of the game. Griefing is a feature, not a bug. After my experience in Ark, it is one of the main reasons that I decided to stay the hell away from Rust. I understood it's to be expected with so many other people playing on the server. But that didn't make it easier. It didn't make it easier on my mental to know that when I wasn't logged in and when I wasn't playing, there was a chance that someone was butchering my Tammy or leading the King of New York, my Brontosaurus, off a cliff. So what to do? Well, we came up with the easiest solution first. Instead of playing together with my friends, we would now play in shifts. What's the point? What is the point? Genuinely, what is the point? Why? What is the point? I don't get... Why? Oh my god. This is Neocron stuff. We must protect the op. No, we don't. We'll just take it all back when we get online. It's something to do. We started taking shifts. I don't want to be sounding like a maniac. It wasn't literal guard duty. We still ran off and did our thing, but we always made sure at least one person throughout a 24-hour period would be online to keep an eye on the base. Now, taking shifts to stand guard over our digital dinosaurs when you'd rather just play something else with your friends or a different game or go outside or do literally anything else, but your shift wasn't up yet, wasn't exactly fun. But after all the time and effort we'd put in, we can't just let it burn to the ground while we sleep. We were too far in. The sunk cost fallacy of Ark had gripped us tight. We were the hairy cunts, and this was our home. But then a solution presented itself, my friends. What was that solution? We clearly needed more people. We clearly needed many more people who played at different times than us, who would naturally be online when we weren't. And so, the proposition was made that maybe we should merge with another tribe that's also having these difficulties. Now, I want to explain quickly how this works in Ark. And forgive me if I get something wrong, it has been 10 years since this event went down. An Ark tribe slaps your tribe's name in green on anything you own. It lets all your buildings be your buildings, and all your dinos be your dinos. If you are not a part of the tribe, the items and dinosaurs are labeled red. And you cannot interact with tribe assets beyond destroying, murdering, butchering, or breaking things. It keeps your bases semi-secure, and other players from hopping on the T-Rex that you spent the better part of a weekend taming and just running off with it. Though there are still plenty of ways to mess with people. And so, let's get back to the merger. I had made friends with the leader of the Swanson G's, Miss Cass. She was the leader of the Swanson G's. This tribe was honestly great. We got along so well. Miss Cass seemed like such a nice person. We would farm together. We had a generally great time. We got along so well that I added Miss Cass to my Steam friends. And let me tell you now, 10 years ago, I took great pride in a curated Steam friends list. Oh, really? Oh, how does one get chosen to be on your Steam friends list, I wonder? What kind of bribery must take place there? Do we have to rizz the hell out of you like Oblivion? Do we must tell you jokes and boast and all sorts of things? And once I added Miss Cass to the prestigious now Steam friends list, we started to play other games together. Now, their tribe, the Swanson G's, was based in Europe, while we were Team US of A. And it was really cool to start meeting folks from different countries across the planet and have fun together. Now, I didn't decide on a merger immediately. I know grouping up with randos is typically a recipe for disaster, and I wanted to make sure things would be A-okay before we made such a big commitment to each other. But it seemed perfect. Not only did we get along with them, but due to their work, schooling, and time zones, they hopped on the game around the time that we would be going to bed for the evening. I saw the Swanson G's as the solution to keep us safe, our base safe, and our animals safe. And so I called a meeting of the members. It was decreed. It was written in stone, and the decision was made. Every single person agreed that this was the correct move, and so we made it official. We joined forces to create the new guild. It's Morphin Time. It's Morphin Time started with so much promise, my friends. I was so excited. Not only had we met cool new people, but it all just clicked. It all just worked together. It was like Lego bricks. They had great gear, strong dinosaurs, and they were fun to play with. We decided that It's Morphin Time needed a new location to set up. A brand new base of operations with the combined might of both our guilds. We migrated all of our dinosaurs and began construction. It was utopian. Until it wasn't. You see, there was one member of the Swanson G's who hadn't been online during all our gameplay sessions. We had never come into contact with them. His name was Gimpy. He must not have been playing a lot or even at all when we first got to know the Swanson G's. Or maybe he only logged in after we were offline. I did see his name a few times in chat, but that was about it. It turns out I should have been paying very, very close attention to any members that might have been AFK during our negotiations. Because Mike, let me tell you, Gimpy was a straight up supervillain. Remember how the whole point of the merger was to avoid griefers and work together? It turns out that Gimpy had a bit of a reputation. Not just within our guild or within the other guild. Gimpy had a reputation on the whole server. In fact, Gimpy was renowned for being the worst griefer on the server. Gimpy seemingly played games 24 hours a day without rest. He would play all kinds of multiplayer games, and his sole purpose in life was to fuck people off. When it came to Rust, he would break into bases, steal their items, blow up all the stuff they'd worked hard for, and generally cause havoc while laughing the whole time. He made particularly interesting decisions in his real life. It turned out while he was unemployed and receiving no money, he had starved himself for multiple days at a time in order to save up for a better microphone to annoy people in proximity chat. Wow. Jesus Christ. Wow. Holy shit. Holy shit. I would rather starve, but it's really important to me that people hear me laughing at them when I blow their shit up, like in crystal clear voice comms. Like that's way more important than like living. I will let my body deteriorate to nothingness as long as some kid can hear me laughing at him in the best quality possible. Soon after we had made its morphin time, I got some messages about Gimpy and knew he was the type of person that I wanted to avoid. It made me feel a little uncomfortable that apparently we were now providing asylum to the server's war criminal. The only way I didn't break off the merger immediately on discovery of this is I took comfort that at least he's on our side. Better the enemy you know. Better the enemy you know was the justification here. Better the enemy you know, I suppose. Better the enemy you know. Okay. Yeah. I can't remember, like, the population numbers of our server. But it was right at the start of Ark, and this game had some hype behind it. So there were quite a few tribes across the island. Let me tell you. Gimpy thought it would be funny to try and annoy all of them in one go. He called it kicking the hornet's nest. Jesus Christ. Like it's an operation. I feel like he had like a battle plan and a map and the most efficient way of getting to everybody's base, what times they were on, like they play between these hours and doing shit here. Ugh. Not long after our merge, Operation Hornet's Nest was hit like a piñata. We were all underway building our brand new morphin base. The walls were up and we had a basic structure on the go. But there was still loads and loads of infrastructure to do. While I was out farming materials, I noticed very concerning messages appearing in the general chat. Gimpy was being yelled at. a lot. The details were fuzzy as the messages were spammy, and it was a while ago, but he had clearly been griefing other players. A few minutes later, more and more people started chiming in. Whatever Gimpy was up to, he was spreading like a plague. And what made it worse, as he had now become public enemy number 1, its morphin time was now guilty by association. The name was being mentioned a lot. We were being told that it was the guild responsibility to keep Gimpy in check. What do you guys think about that? It is the responsibility of everybody else to keep this guy in check. I mean, what kind of bullshit is that? Honestly, I need supervision. I don't want any vision, super or otherwise, on your day-to-day life, Gimpy. I don't want that. Kick him. You kicking Gimpy, Rob? It's Gimpy, though, right? Do you know what they're fearful of? And I bet this has happened to some of you who've been in clans or guilds or whatever across various games. Is somebody in your guild is just a complete piece of shit, and you're more concerned about their retaliation if you kick them than actually dealing with the bullshit of keeping them in the guild. I kind of feel like I've been through that at some point, maybe back in the day. Not in WoW, but even pre-WoW, of like, getting rid of this guy is actually more trouble than keeping them. Because he's just going to target us endlessly. In fact, we make it better for everybody else. We were being told it was our responsibility to keep Gimpy in check. But of course, Gimpy wasn't listening to us or anybody. The only reason he wasn't just griefing us as well is because he was part of Morphin Time. Mike, I know you think it's funny, but we did have somewhat of a guild manifesto. Of course you did. We had such noble intentions. And we had only been in existence for 2 days. And we're now listed as the most hated guild on the server. As a former leader of the Hairy Cunts, and the person who had brokered this guild merger, I obviously had to do something about this. I saw this whole fiasco as my fault, as I was the one who had spearheaded everything. I didn't want all of our work from both my tribe and even the Swanson G's to go to waste because of Gimpy. I decided I should have a meeting with Miss Cass about Gimpy's behavior, and she agreed that some of the things he does are not okay. I think Cass and Gimpy might be together. I think Cass and Gimpy might be together here. She and Gimpy were friends, or at least had games together for a while, and she said she was going to speak to him and try and calm him down. After the meeting, I messaged Miss Cass to find out how it had gone. She seemed a little upset, because after she explained to Gimpy of the new start of its morphin time and the problems he was causing, he had told her to go fuck herself. And that he was not going to stop griefing. No. It's got to be good. And of course, we're here once again to celebrate the stories that have been amassed over the week from you guys around the world with Drama Time. The stories of your interactions with the crazy people you meet online and the weird and wonderful way they play. And I've got 3 stories in front of me, and I always say everybody has a story to tell because you've been online with people, haven't you? Yes, you have. And people act very strange online. You can send them to us at drama@preachgaming.com. You can share them with us, any weird and wonderful tales that you may have had recently or in the past, or just want to get it off your chest because it was weird and maybe you goofed up. Often people come to us asking for judgment on their actions, and I don't know if today will be any different, because these stories are vetted by our wonderful Bex, who reads through them all and picks and chooses and sorts them for me and things like that. But I have to start with this one. As it has been announced, we have the release date of the next WoW raid. know when it's coming. I have no idea if I'm going to be involved or not, but if I am, we'll find out, won't we? That's the way it's gonna be. That's the way it's gonna be. So we'll I'll find out when you find out. Oh, there are some choice names in this one, actually. Some choice names I'm noticing here. Some familiar faces, our wonderful website supporters who enable Drama Time to continue on after 10 long years and have your name into these tales to be immortalized. How you will be immortalized, I cannot say. I cannot say, but it is one of those things. I don't get... I can... Total honesty... Head to toe, I swear on my children's life, I have no involvement on whether I'm at or involved in the Race to World First in any way anymore, and haven't done for a few years, alright? Nups knows, point at him, he knows, because he's the one who deals with all these things. I actually have zero involvement whatsoever. I have no involvement at all. It is his job. He organizes these things. He finds out whether it's worth us going or not and doing these kinds of things. So it's out of my hands. For my own good, I will point out. It is for my own good. Nups's primary role is to protect me from me. Which he does more often than I would like to admit. But his main job is to protect me from me. And make sure we're all still here at the end of the week. That's the way it goes. All right, let's have some fun. This story has been entitled "The Gay Warlock." I don't know how this is gonna go, but let's have some fun. Greetings, Preach, and the lovable, glorious, and incredibly sexy jury that is the live audience. Now, you're getting buttered up here, chat. You know how it goes when it gets a little sussy. Yeah, exactly. The sus levels rise. I have to warn any prospective authors of Drama Time. Trying to be nice to the audience will result in a wave of guilty by association. You should look at the way they treat me, okay? The audience doesn't like kindness in any way, shape, or form. With me greasing your wheels, you would think I am desperate to find an innocent verdict, so it looks like we are being the jury. However, I already know before you get to the end of this tale that you will declare me guilty. However, in my defense, there are no innocent parties here. There are only people more guilty than others, so perhaps a guilt ranking system is in order. That's an interesting way of putting things. Okay, a guilty ranking system. Top 5 guiltiest people in the party. YouTube shorts, here we come. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to take you back in time just a wee bit to where it was misty and pandery. I was in the Throne of Thunder patch of World of Warcraft, patch 5.2. You know, one of the questions, this is me talking now, one of the questions I get asked by people who are like hardcore long-time WoW players, what was the best patch ever? Often the question is, what was the best expansion ever? Which raises debate. But what if you break it down, what was the best ever patch of the game? And it's a tough question. However, I kind of lean towards patch 5.2. Patch 5.2 is the Throne of Thunder. We also had the Thunder Isle, which I think was probably the best implementation of an outdoor zone that wasn't just relevant to casuals. We got a lot out of it as well. It did. It had Raden. I mean, many people will argue that next to Ulduar, the Throne of Thunder was the best raid they ever made. Although it does have that bridge. And if you've played World of Warcraft and you've played Mists of Pandaria, you know of the bridge. It does have the bridge, but the raid itself overall, Lei Shen, one of the best bosses ever. Great outdoor content. The Mage Tower patch, yeah, I think the Mage Tower patch wouldn't be universally agreed as being the best. I agree, for me it was phenomenal. I had the absolute best time ever during the Mage Tower since I started streaming. because streaming does take something away from the day-to-day running of the game. But I think a lot of casual players will probably disagree with the Mage Tower patch, I would guess, if they remember it. 8.3.5 corruption purchasing also had problems, though, right? They, like, cycled it through weeks. You could get some corruptions one week, but you couldn't get them the next, and blah, 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 and you had to collect those points. I would disagree on that, because it also had that visions thing. You guys remember that cloak fucking bollocks that we had to do over and over and over? You had to do it like 4 times some weeks, if not 6, to get your cloak upgrade. Oh, it was fucking horrendous, man. They took the horrific visions. That's what they were called. A good concept. Horrific visions were really fun, unless you're forced to do them over and over and over again, which is what they did, which was horrible. Yeah, it was horrible. They took a really good idea. Not that they would ever repeat such a process. I kind of lean towards 5.2 as being the best patch they ever put into the game. 5.2 was pretty rock solid, by my memory. Had Thunder Forging, but at that point it wasn't the end of the world. You got all those coins, so you could gear up your alts really fast in L5, like guaranteed loot, pretty much. The bonus for loot coins. Not bad. Okay. I was 19 years old and a secluded gamer. Back to the story, sorry. Tangent there, but I think it's well worthy of discussion. It's 19 years old. I was, of course, a complete and utter total degenerate. I was no-lifing this game more than is healthy. And as someone who was so into it, I was doing a minimum 9 hours a day. That's not that much when you consider the no-life hours some of us have put into that game. If I'm being honest with you guys, at my worst, I think I went maybe 4 weeks at about 18 hours a day. At my absolute worst. I think that was... I did do that for multiple weeks during the Burning Crusade. Like, yeah, I think it was about 18 hours a day. I was barely sleeping and just playing all day. All day. No, I didn't have a job. I think it was like summer or something like that. And I got to stay at my brother's, so I had no parents. So I was, yeah, that was a rough time. Don't recommend. Don't recommend. Don't recommend. I don't know if I was in university at the time. I might have been at university and got some break off or whatever. Either way, the most important thing, did I bathe? Not really. No. I was staying at my brother's. I didn't have a girlfriend. Or did I have a girlfriend, but because I was staying at my brother's, I just didn't see her? I can't remember. Potentially. My brother lived very far away from where my house was. My brother lived very far away from where my house was, so if I was there, and I couldn't drive at the time, so yeah. Yeah, it was bad. It wasn't. I don't recommend. But no one ever told me to stop playing. No. In fact, only English guys will probably get this. We just had chippy every night. That was it. That's how we lived. We ate once a day, and we just had chippy delivered to the house. And we just ate chippy and carried on gaming. And then we gamed until chippy arrived 24 hours later. That's what we did. I want chippy now. That is the dream. It's not. It's bad. Okay, I know we're off track here, but I've been so focused. I've got stories to share with you guys. I don't know what your standard chippy order is, and many British people will have one. At the time, my standard chippy order was a portion of egg fried rice with a steak and kidney pudding, and we split some chips. Chips, rice, and a steak and kidney pudding covered in ketchup. That was the standard order. That was the play. Chips, rice, and a steak and kidney pudding with ketchup all over it. It must have had less protein in it than a pot noodle. We don't really get battered sausages in Manchester. It's not really a thing. Not really a thing.
I feel like we need to address this.
Oh, here he comes. I've woke the beast.
Ridiculous.
Why?
Up here in North,
In North?
it is normal to go to a chippy
Yeah.
and have Chinese food.
Yeah, 100%.
That is insane.
There's practically zero English chippies in the North.
I don't get it.
I know of one in the local area. One English. No, I know two, but I'm talking a good 6 miles apart. And there's a chippy on every street. To give you context, there is a chippy on every main road, if not two. And I only know of two actual English ones.
Like, in my town where I grew up, there was a Chinese chippy, singular.
Yeah, very normal up here. They're all Chinese.
But there were other chippies that were, you know, not that.
No.
And even then, it was not normal to get Chinese food there.
That's so weird. Chinese food is way better.
Battered sausage or something.
Oh,
right?
if you order fish around here, you're definitely a loser. Like, there is no bigger tell than you are an absolute nonce than ordering a fish in the north. you
are mad.
You absolute nonce.
It's fish and chips.
Nobody likes fish and chips. Fish and chips
I love
fucking
fish
suck.
and chips. It's great.
Yeah, you southern loser. You southern loser.
Savages.
Yeah, you mix some Chinese food with some English food, you're all good. The only idiot food you can get in a chippy in the north is a scallop. Anyone who orders a scallop is a terrorist. That's just a fact. That's a fact. Fish and chips is rubbish. Give me some sweet and sour chicken, baby. With some chips. Chips and sausage and a Savoy! Savoy! Anyway, we've gone well off track. You can tell I'm in a bit of a mood. I'm feeling a bit of a way today. Anyway, back to the story. I have to tell you, although I was gaming 8 to 9 hours a day, I was so bad at this game, it was unbelievable. I did 0 heroics. I daren't step foot in any battlegrounds, and definitely I never touched a raid. I was playing 8 to 9 hours a day, leveling alts. So miserable. Jesus Christ. Just miserable. I would play 1 or 2 levels on each character, then swap to a new one each time. I would mostly bounce around between my druid, warlock, and monk, which were Worgen, Pandaren, respectively. And yes, fuck you, Mike, I am a legitimate furry. Okay. Why share? Why do we need to know? Alright. You do you. And of course, I was doing my garden on all my alts in the Valley of the Four Winds. Oh man, I'm such an arsehole. I really am. I'm talking about me here. I didn't do the garden because I thought it was probably lame casual content, and I did it at the very end of the expansion, and it was so fun. I did it probably in the last 2 months of Pandaria existing, and it was so fun. It was really fun, and I was just like, God damn it, I didn't do this because it looked like a pointless MMO grind, and I was like, I can't be bothered. And then I went and did it, and I was like, this is great. This is really cool. I collected all the gems. I did all the bits and bobs. Anyway, having experienced some serious drama caused by loot and complete noobs, myself included, trying to run a raiding guild despite us never raiding. Oof. Which caused that guild to implode within 10 days. Why do you guys decide to start running a raid guild when you've never been in a raid before? I don't understand this mentality. I'm gonna run a raid guild. I have no idea how it works. I have no concept of this whatsoever. But because of this, I was hesitant to join another guild because of my bad experience, let alone actually try raiding, okay? And then I did a heroic. And in that heroic, I had the most wonderful experience. I met the star of this story, Armst, a super gay elderly man that loved to remind everyone that he was from a country that no longer exists. Ooh. Ooh, Srelon? We talked about that recently for some reason. Where would they be? Yugoslavia? Maybe? Czechoslovakia? Could be. Could be. Oh yeah, it's a good puzzle. Countries that no longer exist. Gulf of Mexico? Too soon. Not a country.
Less than
Along
3.
with him, I met Ajna and Ukami. All people I became good friends with. And because of whom, they invited me to their guild. Oh, ignore me, I'm from the future. Can I join? Oh, let's have a name for the Gay Warlock Guild. What are we calling the Gay Warlock Guild? Nothing offensive. What are we calling the guild? We need a guild. We like it. The Pipers. I like that. The Pied Pipers. Come on his chest. The Chippy. We'll call him the Chippy. I like that. We'll call him the Chippy. The Chippy was run by a lady in her 40s. You say that like that's old. Still young, that's alright. And their main form of communication was not Discord or any sort of online forum. They ran the guild via Facebook. See, I'm leaving. That's not possible. That's not allowed. You can't. No. No, I'm not having that. I'm not doing that. You can't run the guild through Facebook, man. That's not okay. That's not okay. Oh, true. Do you think you have to? Do you think people make like gamer? They probably do, right? Gamer Facebook accounts for shit like that. They probably do. It was also a guild formed after their previous guild they raided within Wrath of the Lich King splintered because of drama involving the guild leader and the officer bumping uglies. In hindsight, all this would have been a great sign to not be a part of this. Yeah, I mean, before I even heard the story of the old relationship drama of the Facebook group, I'm out. But here's the thing, Mike. As is true of so many drama stories, I made friends. And they referred to the members of the guild. Come on, live audience. What do these guilds always call themselves? They're not just gamers. They're not just players. They are, as Vin Diesel would tell us all, they're family. They're family. Oh, yes. We're a family. It's not just a guild. We're family. Oh, yes. The Chippy, however, was nothing to scoff at in terms of raiding. They managed to clear the extremely difficult and taxing normal Throne of Thunder 10-man. Okay. And had made a big deal that they were going to clear normal Siege of Orgrimmar when it released. Wow. Kind of huge. There was enough of an interesting flex, though, that a secondary raid group was put together, including Arms, Ajna, and Nukami. And this is when it all exploded. The raid leader of the normal group was an individual by the name of Braggart. And the raid leader of the Flex group was going to be me. You've been made the raid leader. Okay. Interesting. And from the very beginning, there were problems. Braggart considered his group to be the S-tier group. And he wanted people in his normal group that were only interested in Flex, like Ukami. And there were people in the Flex group that thought themselves good enough to actually go and do Heroic, like Armst. This led Armst to hate Braggart, and by proxy, Ukami as well. There were so many raid nights when me, Ajna, and Armst were hanging out in TeamSpeak, just shooting the shit, and Armst making snide remarks about how much of a twat Braggart is. And guild leader was just as bad. About how much he has given to the guild, sacrificed for the Chippy, and not got anything back. And how as an elderly gay man from a country that no longer exists, he had more wisdom than most. I will have you know, I am an elderly gay man, and my country no longer exists, so you will listen to me. You will listen. At the time, Arms said something that did stick with me. I was friendless and poor. However, Braggart had his fair share of elitism about him. Ukami, the other source of info I had on the raid leader, told me stories about the raid runs they did. How Braggart was against speaking during raid time. Especially during trash, because it caused people to lose focus on efficient trash clearing. how he had established what he called the Braggart hierarchy. Here we go. The Braggart hierarchy, which was a hierarchy of loot distribution that was the base version of need or greed. However, there was then subsections of priorities to specific people depending on how Braggart ranked them. After every weekly round of raids, Braggart would post his performance list, where he would subdivide people into different categories from top tier downwards, and wouldn't include himself on the list. Braggart was known for having poor DPS, but Braggart also said that as the raid leader, it was impossible for him to top the DPS and control the flow of battle, as he called it. Interesting. The flow of battle. As raid leader, as you can probably imagine, Braggart was very high on his own hierarchy list. Yes, the flow of battle must be controlled. Yes. Using this information, Arms kept pouring sweet bullshit down my throat. How I'm a better raid leader. How our loot council system is far more democratic. How our group is just more fun than the other team. And how both the guild leader and especially Braggart are in an alliance to suck our good players away from our team to feed theirs. This was reinforced by the fact he wasn't the only one saying it, but he was the loudest who was doing it. So while all this is happening, ladies and gentlemen, our amazing flex group that was full of nothing but the best average tier gamers, according to the hierarchy, was progressing really nicely. Each boss was taking about 15 to 20 pulls and falling to the floor. The great group check on the Fallen Protectors, the raid lead testing Nurashen, the Iron Juggernaut, 5 pulls only and down on the floor. Our raid team was also allowed to talk during the raid nights, and they were having fun. The loot council was considered very fair. It essentially boiled down to just need before greed and checking who it was better for. That was it. Our team was cohesive, regular, and doing well. For Arms, that meant that he could talk way more shit about Braggart, especially Braggart's ability to play the game. He himself, of course, was absolute shit, requiring coaching from me, who didn't understand how to do Warlock DPS. I even leveled a Warlock alt just to understand how he was so fucking bad, and that made me slightly fall in love with playing a ranged DPS. It did help Arms a little bit, but to be honest, he stayed in the group because flex raiding required almost no damage, and people were technically worse than him, and the bosses were dying, so what's the problem? In contrast, Braggart's hardcore normal progression team was struggling, hitting wall after wall. They were stuck on General Nazgrim for a really long time, and people were getting mad in Braggart's group. I recall the Flex group approaching Nazgrim, causing a bunch of, well, based on what we've seen in Braggart's group, this boss is going to be really hard. And alright, now this is the wall. This is where you're going to hit it. And to be fair, he was right for the most part, as our group was progressing slower than the hardcore group. The actual catching up, though, happened when the group met Thok, the big, nasty dinosaur. A boss that the normal team had been progressing for 2 weeks. When people heard we had reached the same boss as the hardcore normal group, okay, we had a ton of new sign-ups who wanted to practice. As I was checking through the list of sign-ups, I noticed a name appear that had never signed up for our little casual flex run before. Braggart wanted in. Not only that, I received a DM from Braggart saying he would grace us with his presence, and also he would raid lead to take the stress off me. Nobody wanted this. Nobody. Immediately drama ensued. Heads were butting, and ultimately, he had authority. After all, he was writing the hierarchy of performance week on week. Braggart won the argument. No matter what we fucking said, he always came back to, we're the better team, and we are helping you. For Arms, this was the wedge that he could use to drive the rest of the guild and our little clique apart, feeding sweet, sweet bullshit to us on evenings when we four were among the few people online. Ukami was the first person to break. Just said fuck this and started looking for a better guild. Next was me. So entrenched in what Arms was telling me, I was not only considering leaving the guild, I was being convinced to start a new one, where I would be in charge, on a totally different server. I was given Arms' word that he would help be my second in command to put the guild together with his years of experience being a gay warlock from a country that no longer existed. How many... this keeps going, brings it up all the time. Do you want a drink? You know, I think I will have a drink. As an elderly gay warlock from a country that no longer exists, I often find myself thirsty on a daily basis. So, yeah, I think I will take a drink. I will. Yeah, okay, good. He also claimed that he would use his years of wisdom to help me recruit and fill the guild, to do all the baggage work, as it was described. With such promises, a plan, of course, was hatched. With the release of Warlords of Apex's crystals, we would grab a bunch of like-minded individuals from the guild, transfer to a better, more populated server, start a brand new chippy, complete with Chinese food, and attempt to become heroic raiders. There, in our new domain, we would show Braggart that we were so much better than him. The target server was the same server that Okami had transferred to join his new guild, just so that we had some level of contact there, and maybe we could recruit alongside them. The plan was hatched. A bunch of us gathered together. The stage for our coup was set. The only thing left was D-Day. And D-Day came. Flex Group and Normal Group were head-to-head trying to kill the last boss, Garrosh Hellscream. Some serious progression was happening, and time was running out until the Warlords arrived. And then the inevitable happened. Our group killed Garrosh before the hardcore Braggart group. The cheers that we heard that day still linger with me today. It was incredible. It couldn't have gone better. The loot was distributed, and we stood over that corpse, and that was that. The group was done. That was all we wanted. People moved on because a new expansion was coming soon, and we got the salt that we wanted from the one and only Braggart. And so the motion began, of course. The only ones that transferred, though, were me and Armst. Well, check. Where is everybody? What the hell, dude? There was a plan. Where have you guys gone? We made an appropriately edgy guild name because, again, we were lonely and poor, and at this point, I was 20 years old. And then, as promised, Arms said this was rubbish and left the game. We had been there 3 days. I, though, had paid my real-life money to move servers, and I was not about to let this dream die. So I took it upon myself. I pulled myself up and decided I will recruit and get this sorted. Mike, audience, I don't think it's possible to recruit worse players than I did. I got the scummiest of the scum. I got some people who I don't think even put buttons on their bars. After 10 days of recruiting so many people, only to have them ask me insane things like how do I get gold or where is the mailbox, I decided it would be better if I just quit the game until Hellfire Citadel. But then, Mike, I did... Oh, my God. Oh, dear. But then, Mike, I did something I don't think you would have approved. You see, although I wasn't actively playing, I was still browsing the websites, seeing what was happening and keeping up with the news. When I spotted a Reddit guild that was recruiting, you went from a Facebook guild to a Reddit guild? That's what you did? That is your WoW history. Is you made your own guild without knowing how the game works, and then joined a Facebook guild, and then joined a Reddit guild. Okay. Ukami, though, actually made good decisions. Good job. And managed to have a decent heroic mythic raiding career. Ajna is still in the titular guild, as well as Braggart, pushing hard. As for me, as of Battle for Azeroth, I went to greener pastures and other games. I became Baldur's Gate 3 gamer, Factorio gamer, Guild Wars 2 gamer, but then ultimately, WoW Classic gamer. I'm sorry, Mike. I know, after now listening to Drama Time, that my decisions were maybe not the best. But I just want to thank you for reading my story. Hopefully it was entertaining, as it's the biggest WoW drama I've ever been involved in. And looking back on it now, it was totally ridiculous. As most drama is. I mean, you were given all the signs. You were given all the signs. Right? The evidence was there. Okay. Bex, I swear to God, if this is about me, I'm just saying, if this is about me, I'm not going to be happy. Alright? I don't need bashing, alright? So, for our audio listeners, the title of this story is The Streamer That Betrayed Me. I've never betrayed anybody. Okay? I think that's Sneak Attacks, isn't it? I remember Sneak. I know Sneak. Ethan Doomish. Google? Someone signed up to our website as Google. It's not supposed to be Google, right? It says Google on the sheet back, so is it not supposed to be Goobs? I'm just double checking. Is the name correct? Because it's Google. Okay, it says Google on the sheet. I was like, well, that seems odd. Googba. Yeah, it's Goobs. Okay. I'm just double checking. I'm glad I checked. It must have been autocorrect. It just says like Haytham, Adoomish, Google, and Hans. Okay, here we go. The streamer who betrayed me. Has any of you ever been betrayed? No, I'm not asking that question. I don't know what streamer betrayal is. Okay, stream. Yeah, you'll all say yes if I ask that question. I don't know why I ask, because I still have an air of innocence around me every day. Warhammer Summer, MMO December. We did MMO December, and we did a lot of Warhammer. We still got more to go. Fuck off. Good day, Preacher and Bex. I just started listening to Drama Time a few weeks ago. I have been binging it hardcore on my daily commute, and I've got a story that does in fact require the jury, because I am not sure if I'm innocent or guilty, or if the members of the story are. Okay, we have genuine verdicts to draft in here. Okay. I come to you from Team USA, and this is actually a very recent story about me dealing with a wannabe content creator who sabotaged my friend's group's raid plans for their own content. Okay, I have never done that, to be clear. Of all the things I've done, I have never done that. I have never sabotaged anybody's raid. Right? I haven't. I have not. I have never done that. All right, here's the scene, guys, so you can assess the... I haven't. Me and a few of my buddies were going to start the War Within as a 5-man squad with the usual goal of getting Curve and Keystone Master like we had done during most of Dragonflight. Me, my good buddy Aura, another friend Sneak Attacks, and a couple, Hatham and a Doomish. Okay, so you come as a package deal. Always awkward, but you can puggles. It's fine. Months before the expansion, we opted to spin a wheel to determine our raid and dungeon roles. Oh, I don't like that. No, I don't like that. I mean, I don't know. When I feel like I want to do a thing, I'm going to do the thing. Yeah, if I don't get the thing I want to do, I don't want to play. We gave ourselves a main and off-spec option, since we like changing things up. I landed on DPS in dungeons and off-tank in the raid. So I chose a monk. Oh, God, you didn't even come in with a class? So you had to choose a class that met the roles that you got on the wheel. Right. Oh, I don't like that. Yeah, I don't like that plan at all. This is giving me the EBGBs. I don't like that. The plan was that us 5 would run raids with all of us in healing and tank roles. Okay. That's not a bad plan. That part's not bad. You only need to pug DPS. And you can control the sort of intricacies of the fight for the most part. Don't mind that. If you're all okay with it, that's kind of a play. I would be the raid leader because no one else could be asked. And we would fill DPS with pugs that we could feel indifferent about and fuck off and kick if necessary without stopping the raid. Yeah, that works. That's totally fine. None of us, except Sneak Attacks, who was improving rapidly after returning from a long hiatus away from WoW, are shit at the game. So, we can't really go wrong. Okay, so we've got people who believe they're pretty decent. Now I need to introduce you to the villain of this story, Gooble. I say villain, and maybe that's just my opinion, but you can be the deciding factor. Okay. We have a villain. Now, Hatham, who is one of the couple of our group, is really good friends with Goobs. And Hatham had rolled main tank. So he had a lot of pull in what we were going to be doing. There's fucking 5 of you who randomly rolled things. You don't randomly roll authority. What is this? Crazy talk? What are you talking about? What? I'm so confused. Google had different plans to us in his mind and started discussing his plans with Hatham, and Hatham seemed to prefer Google's way of doing things. As Hatham thought it was all good ideas, he started changing our 5-man group plans. You see, Google was an aspiring content creator. He was going to become a WoW streamer. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's a rough game to get into, pal. Listen, trust your dad on this one. That's a rough game. Google had come up with an excellent plan. We would list raids, find people through pugging, get them to sign up to our Pug Discord community, where we would have raids twice weekly and foster a chill community of players. And it would all be funneled through Google's stream. Okay. Sounds good, doesn't work. It doesn't even sound good. This sounds horrendous. This sounds absolutely awful. I feel. I mean, just to be clear, I've had this presented to me as an idea millions of times because people have this very utopic idea of how this will work out. No, absolutely not. As anybody from any of the PG communities will know, they need constant modding, constant, never-ending modding when you have open platforms like this. Okay, but we shouldn't worry, because our actual plans and goals would all remain the same, and it was nothing for us to be concerned about.